let your heart break on the internet. 24 twice. She's on the phone, but she's staying on Wilshire Boulevard. Old dreams dying hard. You want you to return this love. Breathing in the dark, weightless, working hard. You want you to return his love. Now he's bleeding diamonds on you, but that ain't enough to turn the page. He's kneeling once again.
Hello, Minnesota sports fam. Welcome back. Not the Minnesota Sports Fan Podcast.
But kind of the Minnesota Sports Fan Podcast.
Not technically the Minnesota Sports Fan Show either. We're in a middle ground, in a happy middle ground that hopefully everybody will enjoy. I'm Eric Strack, Minnesota Sports Fan, minnesotasportsfan.com. As you can see here, it's been a little while, but my cousin, friend, Brandon, here with us, the original member of the Minnesota Sports Fan Podcast, has made his return. Brandon, how are you?
Dustin, I'm doing well. Dusting off the old cobwebs here. It feels good to hear that song. I kind of wanted to dance. I kind of remember the words. I kind of didn't remember the words. You talk about being in that little state of transition. I'm wearing a shirt, which is weird, so it's not quite the Minnesota Sports Fan Podcast or the formerly No Shirts, No Skins.
Yep.
I'm far too skinny fat these days to present it like that as I become a domesticated man. Things have changed, but
Yes.
man, it feels good to be back. I was telling you before we got on here, I'm like, I don't know if I'll be able to turn into character again here and just flip on that switch. So be interesting. It's trying to think, what has the timeline been? It's had to have been a good 2 years,
Yeah, I think
3 maybe even.
I'm trying to think of the last time that you just joined on like a random whim, which would have been at least a year ago, probably longer. So we're probably going
Probably
at least
longer.
2 years.
I'm trying to think. So last time I know that I joined, and especially from like a video perspective and all of that, my office was still downstairs, and that has been moved for 2 or at least maybe almost 3 years.
Yeah, I think the last time we did this, you were coming to us from outside, probably.
Or even maybe outside. No, outside have been further. That would have been draft. I don't know. In any event, it's been a long fucking time. Like, can we still swear in this? I mean, do I got to be
Oh, yeah.
careful? Am I? Okay.
Nah, you're fine. We're
All right. Still uncensored. I can still go. We might not throw up some of the old clips like we used to, but we're still close to X-rated or
yeah.
or
You know,
unfiltered?
I would say unfiltered. X-rated is taking it a little far, but unfiltered should be okay for sure.
There was once a time though. You go look at some of the greatest clips and greatest moments and most viewed podcasts of one time, and
Yes.
there were some references that would be considered possibly X-rated.
Yeah, we had some good times back then for sure. The Duluth episode with the topless swimming chick, that was a good one.
That one's always good.
The Netflix porn.
That's one that
and
comes to mind right away. The Netflix porn and the graphics and the little hype
the
video
Simpson
for
guy.
that one is still- Oh my god, that one is still absolute classic. We had no idea what we were even doing at the time, but we didn't realize we were making preliminary gold.
I know we didn't know. That's why I told Caleb we were actually talking about that a little bit on one of our shows the other day, that you and I, back when we first started the MSF podcast, really had no idea how successful we actually were. We looked at it and we were like, because we were probably 25-ish episodes in, and we were getting up into the 200 downloads per.
200 downloads up to like 400 and some like live views basically after the downloads in the first day. Like we're like, oh, that's not enough.
Yeah, because you and I were thinking, I mean, we're looking to do this and
I thought
make money and whatever.
And thousands and
So we're like
you're thinking of the impressions.
We're thinking
and
we've done
that-
20 some episodes and we're not even like anywhere scratching the surface, and we almost started to get down on each other, and then not on each other but on the show itself. And then after a while it ended up just kind of falling apart. And then afterwards I kind of started to realize, talking to other people who are doing podcasts and getting their numbers and everything, that we were like on our fast track to probably success if we would have kept it going. But
Yeah, I think the biggest thing though, we just didn't realize it at the time too, like the technology side of it, not understanding. I mean, it just, there was so much extra time invested back then that we wouldn't have had to do now.
People
and I mean, we
don't
did a live, which
understand.
actually helped. Oh my god, like it became
Hours,
a
dude.
hours. It was a full time. It was, if we started at 5, ended at 10, 11, and then there was still all of the editing and back and forth afterwards and stuff like that. And like that's where I think we got more down on it. We always thought the product was pretty good. We actually, when we did the episode and we'd go back and listen to it, we actually enjoyed it almost always.
Yeah.
You know, it almost usually came out even better than what we thought it would. But it was that whole process of the start to end. And then, you know, for me, it was just getting the way of work. I'd get worried about that, and just, and you know, not that I'm impatient or anything like that, or you know, have
Not
a bad
you,
attitude.
and not
No,
that
but
I'm somebody to drag things out and to make them
yeah,
take
that's
extra
true.
long because they have to be perfect and they have to be an exact certain way.
In any event, though, it feels good to be back. Glad we're dusting off the cobwebs, trying to bring back some old magic here. But yeah, I suppose we should probably get into it here.
Yeah, we might as
A
well.
lot of the listeners probably don't even remember me from, you know, decades
Yeah,
ago. So
that's
we're
their own
harping
problem.
on some old shit here.
That's
Yeah,
their own
that's true. Good
problem.
point.
That's, you know, that they want to get to know you. So obviously, you know, we're here giving them. But all right.
Well, if we can be successful today, maybe I'll come back.
Wow. I mean, we better hope Caleb's not watching. We don't want him to think that you're going to take his spot or anything. Caleb will be back
No,
on the show. Don't worry.
that's just. I mean, nobody's ever turned on a threesome. I mean, come on.
That's a great point. Great point. All right. Today we are mostly going to focus on draft, as the show details say. So Brandon is our NFL draft expert tonight. He has been taking in everything draft for pretty much the last 2 months, so we're going to tap into his brain. And before that, we're going to get into a little bit Wild and Timberwolves from the first couple games in the series, mostly last night. Wild take home a victory. Timberwolves end up falling to Los Angeles. Let's start with the one that ended sooner, Brandon. Let's start with the Timberwolves. How are you feeling? Let's get your heat check on the Timberwolves here, quick.
Well, you and I kind of talked about this before the series started. I even told you I put a pretty significant waiver on the T-Wolves and the Wild both winning their series. So I'm pretty confident. So looking at the T-Wolves, you look at game one, they essentially, outside of, you know, half of a quarter,
Yep.
you know, dominate the rest of that game.
Yep.
You know, take away the slow start the rest of the game. I mean, it was never really in question. I got a little bit close towards the end, but you know, I kind of go into coast mode.
Yep.
Even last night, I feel like they didn't play that well. I don't know that they can hang with our physicality and our athleticism. They can't. You saw it last night. You know, I'm not going to harp on the refs because that's just the way the NBA game works. But you can clearly see we're the more physical team. I mean, between Luka and LeBron whining after each call, and it just Naz Reid picking up 4 fouls in the course of 4 minutes, and you know, even just looking at some of the calls, we're the bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic team. I don't think they're going to hang with us for a 7-game series. I don't like, you know, the outcome last night. Again, you're on the road though. I mean, in any other situation, any other series, any other sport for that matter, if you say that you're in the playoffs and you go on the road and you take 1 out of the 2 games, you're coming back home. You've got home court advantage. So at that point, like, you can't be upset with the results. I just think that, at least for me internally, I just feel like we're the better team. I thought we could come away with both of those games and then come back home.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think obviously you could argue that the Lakers, and I think that this is a legitimate argument. I feel going into the series, we're getting way too much of the Lakers have the best 2 players, and then we can talk about everything else. When the frustrating thing about Ant is I feel like, and he's only 23, but I feel like we continue to say there's just that one thing missing from his game, and you can't even necessarily like put your finger on it. It might be that he lacks the ability to like take over when he needs to take over. Maybe that's it. I mean, he's done it before, but in his career as a clutch shooter, he hasn't been that good. So maybe that's it. But I feel like there's just that one thing that's holding Ant back from really being. Everybody wants to talk about next face of the NBA, and he's the future, but really solidifying himself in that type of conversation with the Lukas and the LeBrons of the world. But
I think I know what you mean, and I don't know. I agree with you. I don't think it's that one thing. But I think what it is it's that consistency across the board in the takeover kind of moments, like that, where that magic happens. The stuff that, Kobe just did that you couldn't explain. Not to go all the way back to Jordan, the stuff that
But
Jordan
Jordan
did.
too.
Even looking at like Kyrie with the Cavs series and things of that nature, like the Hall of Fame players are the guys that take that next step. Even KD with Golden State in a couple of those seasons. It's kind of, you're waiting for those moments for him to consistently take over all phases of the game where it's his world and nobody else's. He does it in streaks.
Yes.
But even if you go and you look at, the game winning shots, I don't know what the numbers off the top of my head, but I want to say it's like,
It's bad.
He's far
It's like
less.
it's like
bad.
it's like
far
0
less
for something, or like 2 for
I
like
would say it's
30
like
or something.
5 for 35 or something like
Yep.
that, or something along those lines. So it's like, it's a lot worse than what you'd imagine. So that's where I look at it, and I don't know what, it's not that one thing, because there's phases where he's the best player on the court, best player on the planet potentially. Like that dunk he had last night.
Yes.
That's fucking insane. Like he double clutched in the air to get around him, still dunked over him. And then the other thing too, refs hate him. Like
Yes.
he's got the worst whistle in the entire NBA. Like,
Did you see what happened?
they-
Did you see the video from the internet yesterday where LeBron, after he like doesn't get the call, he goes up, doesn't get the call, and he says something like, or he did get the call, and he goes, "About fucking time you call something," like right to the
Ant would
ref,
go,
and
"If I
Ant
said
is
that,
like,
I'd
"If
be
I
teed
said
up."
that,
He's like,
I would have been
"I'd be
out of
teed up,
here."
done,
Yes,
out,
exactly.
kicked out
And
of
he's
the game,
like, he's like this.
Exactly. So there's some of that stuff too, and again, that's got nothing to do with his consistency. There's just those little things, but I call out because the things that he can do at times are nobody can do. And at 23, I mean, he's still within his prime athletic window for 4 years, 5 years that, in other parts of his game will develop. But it's that overall consistency to take over the game where there's just nothing else. Luka's done it before. You've seen him just hit shots that he shouldn't hit and things of that nature. So yeah, I'm with you on that, and I don't know what it is exactly, but there's phases or there's times where he's the best player on the court, and I would even argue that there's been times where you kind of look at other players he was outperforming LeBron and Luka, and again, you look at the overall athleticism and just how quick they look and how fast they look, and the playoff defense that they play versus the regular season. That I think we should be favored. I think we're going to win the series. Aside from the NBA and LA and ratings and calls and trying to extend series, on paper, we're the better team.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the biggest thing, and I was just going to get into this, but like you can argue whether or not Ant is the best player, the second best player, the third best player in the series, whatever. But once you get beyond that top 3, it's pretty much all Timberwolves.
It's
like,
all Timberwolves.
Even what we were hearing about what's his face, though, the white guy guard that they have, like
Dante.
No, for the Lakers. Why can't I think of his name?
Reeves.
Reeves. Like they were talking him up, and when I have watched him, like, because he was on the USA team, right? I'm 99% sure he was. So like when I saw him play on the USA team, and when I've seen him play in other times, he's always like that white guy who stands out as like he's better than I thought he would be. Like that is who he is. So then going into the series, everybody talked about how he was being the underrated factor, like the third part of the Lakers' big 3, and everybody was kind of like looking down on him. Since the series has started, I've taken a step back on like how good I think he is. What I saw from him when I hadn't really seen him play very much, now that I've seen him play for 2 games, I am less impressed than I was before. Like he is a poor man's JJ Redick. Like that's what he when JJ Redick was a player.
Yeah, I mean,
but JJ
Redick turned into a dog.
But JJ Redick, he was a dog. But I'm saying like they would say Reeves might be better at running the point guard, getting to the hole, like being that guy. But
yeah,
I disagree. I would say that
was a little bit more physical. Game 1, I would agree with you 100%. Game 2, he looked a little bit better. He got to the hole. He got to the rack.
No, I agree. But I'm saying that like who JJ Redick was as a player in the NBA, I put Austin Reeves as closer to that than like some legitimate third option to a big 3.
Oh, I mean, you starting to look at when you got, again, Rudy Gobert, you look in a different light because it's defense. It doesn't always show up in the stat sheet. But
I'm so sick of the Rudy Gobert hate. It's
I can't handle it. And then you can look at that steal and the dunk and the coast to coast last night. Nobody's gonna talk about it.
No,
never happened because he would never do that. And then all you hear about is he just gets killed in isolation. He doesn't get
No,
killed in isolation.
they've been trying to
doesn't.
ISO him all series long, and it has not worked. I don't think
It
they might have
hasn't
hit a
worked.
couple shots, but it hasn't worked as like a strategy, and not even close. Not like, oh, we
No.
think we might have something here. It turns into Luka Doncic doing 33-foot fadeaway jumpers. That's what it ends up being, and that's
banking
not
them
good
in,
offense.
No, it's sometimes he'll bank it in
Yeah.
and do something crazy, but no, it's like, so yeah, the Gobert slander has got to stop. But that's when you start talking about the best, big two or big three. They don't have anybody that lines
No.
up. Even Julius Randle, Nas
Nas.
destroys them.
Jaden
You look at
McDaniels.
DiVincenzo, like Jaden
DiVincenzo.
McDaniels blows them away. Like it's just
You go
that's what I say,
down the
up and down.
list.
You go down the list, and it is so skewed towards the Timberwolves that again, like you get a 7-game series, you get the Timberwolves back at home.
Like if you ranked the top 10 players of this series, like would there be any Lakers outside of their top 3 in the top 10?
I don't think so. I mean, I'd have to probably go look at their lineup. Maybe there's a couple guys we're underrating
because you're gonna get
you're
you're gonna get 6 right away because you'll have the Lakers big 3 and then you'll have the Timberwolves if you want to count. You go Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert. Let's say max players.
So let's use this scenario. So instead of having to go that way, I feel like trades are always kind of, because people always get partial to different things and stuff like that. So outside of LA's big 3, is there anybody else on our roster, 1 through 7, 1 through 8, that you're trading straight up for one of their players, 1 for 1?
No. Fuck
That's
no.
what I'm saying. So you
Not
start.
even close.
That's what I'm saying. So you start putting the trade value on it, and that's where people kind of get partial or no, I need this or I need more. From a T-Wolves fan, I can't think of anybody on their roster from, again, Randall to Gobert to Nas Reed to Jaden McDaniels, even DiVincenzo, that I trade a 1 for 1 straight up outside of LeBron or Luka.
And even with how old LeBron's getting, you're even pushing the limit there. I mean,
even that.
Who are you going to trade on our roster for LeBron right now? I mean,
you wouldn't.
You would, like,
nobody.
yes, a Dante DiVincenzo, sure.
Yeah.
Like a Julius
If you're
Randle,
looking
even,
for
sure. But I don't know if
1 or 2 year run. But yeah,
exactly. But
Yep.
I don't even know if like Jaden McDaniels might be too important to the Timberwolves' future to move him in a 1 for 1.
You're not
when you're
moving
only,
him. I mean,
that's what I'm
again,
saying.
what is he,
Obviously not
24?
Ant.
I mean, his best years are ahead of him yet.
Nas Reed, you would never trade straight up.
Never, absolutely.
That's
not.
the funny thing is that and that is the biggest problem going into the start of this series from a national media perspective. If I would have went on ESPN on SportsCenter and they sat me down and said, "What do you think about this series?" and talk about comparisons, and I said, I would not trade Nas Reed straight up right now for LeBron
You'd get
James.
roasted and ESPN
You
would never let you
nobody
back in
would
the door.
even. Yes, they would not even. They'd go, "Who is this guy? Get him off our set." Not half of us haven't even heard
You
of
couldn't
Nas
even
Reed.
speak against the Lakers losing that series. It was the Lakers are going to win, but will it be in 5 or 6? That's
Correct.
pretty much the narrative everywhere.
Yeah, it was. It was like it was something. I did an article on it. It was something like 43 of 53 experts that national experts picked the Lakers to win.
And that's just, it makes me wonder if they didn't look at or didn't watch the T-Wolves this year, but you'd understand that it took them a while to gel. You had some injuries. You had to get, Randall was out for a while. DiVincenzo was out for a while. You still had to get the entire core to gel, so to speak, after, moving Cat. It's like, but as you watch the second half of the season, or at least the last, we'll say, third of the season, like, this was a team that looked a lot like last year's team. Different team, but looked like a playoff run caliber type of squad that
better.
is built
I
for the
think
playoffs,
the
but
Julius
better. We're
Randle
deeper.
the Julius Randle conversation, and yes, you're right, deeper. I agree, but I think we're underrating the winning aspect that Julius DiVincenzo brings. Because, like, Cat
You're
was
dogs,
Cat.
dude.
Cat is who he
Yeah.
is. He's Cat. He's a great
Go look
player.
at Cat's last game. He had
Correct.
a great game 1, game 2. He went right back to the same Cat that we always knew, that we have seen in Minnesota, especially playoffs forever. Like, love Cat, love him as a third option kind of guy, but I want that G. I want that dog. I want that guy that is. I mean, you look at the attitude that DiVincenzo and Randall bring to the court. Like, the Lakers don't want to fuck with those guys.
No.
They don't want to go near them. They see a screen coming. They look out for it. Like, those guys are ready to blast you. Like, those guys, they're gamers. They're G's. They're not going to get down themselves.
Like, as an athlete, Cat, you're it's a tough first half. Like just like in the last game, whatever. Tough first half, you're going into halftime, and Cat gets up to tell the whole team how they need to play better and
You
do
might
this
as well
and do
just
that.
walk home, put an L in the column, walk out, see you later. The game is done.
I'm not saying that his teammates didn't respect him, but him standing up and giving some sort of like locker room speech was never a thing. If Julius Randle stands up and starts mead mugging people,
you're
you're
listen.
fucking listening,
Exactly.
dude. You are
And
listening
again,
immediately.
It's not a cut down on Cat. It's just that Cat's just he's not that pure alpha. Like that's not his normal mentality. So he gets up, you're gonna respect him and like, oh, he's a nice speech, but you're not gonna run through a wall for him. You're
No.
gonna go and kind of probably coddle him and put your arm around him a little bit. And we got this, buddy. Let's do this kind of thing. Not
Correct.
the holy fuck. I'm not walking back in that locker room if I don't get performed because this guy will fucking destroy me if I do. You know, like that's the mentality I want. Like that's Michael Jordan. You go and watch the Netflix special. He was an asshole. But his teammates respected him. You got
Correct.
everything out of him. Not saying that Randall's Jordan, but I'm just saying that true alpha mentality. You can't fake it. You have it or you don't.
Yes, it wasn't the problem that Cat didn't have it. It was that because he was drafted number 1 overall, because he was like the main veteran, he was there before Ant, everything else, he almost felt like he was obliged to like take over this leadership role that he just was not naturally suited for. And whereas Randall brings that type of tenacity, that type of veteran leadership, even after game 1 when they were up at the podium, he did his post game with Ant, and it was like when Ant's asking questions or getting asked questions and answering them, he was almost like looking to Julius to make sure his answers were like okay, because Ant knows that he just says anything and everything that comes to his mind. So he had moments where he's like, should I have said that? And like looks to like Julius. You can just tell it's a different type of mentality. It's like, hey, Julius is here. Like, there's no fucking around. It's business time now. It's time to win. Julius
it's
is
more
here.
that old school mentality versus that new millennium like kind of mentality.
We're not just here having fun, joking around. Like we're here to win basketball games. We got a mission. We're here to complete that mission. Like, so I think that it's very underrated, and I wasn't looking at it. I was looking at it from a basketball standpoint. I wasn't looking to the future and going, you know what? If this team makes the playoffs, they'll be way more mature. They'll be way more ready to handle the playoff grind with Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. So it's almost like as it's unfolding in front of our eyes, it's almost like you're seeing a new element of the trade that you didn't really see until now because it just like wasn't there in front of you.
I agree with all that, and I think the other part too, kind of even the Gobert trade. On paper, it makes so much sense. It's the right thing to do from a basketball operation. I think it's hard for us to wrap our arms around that sometimes. And same thing with the Cat trade because we're like, financial, this, that. But in both situations, we gave up a shit ton for Gobert to make everything work. And again, we had to match salaries. You got to do that. You got to add the value. Get all that. Same thing with Cat. You're like, we didn't get nearly enough. Cat should have got us 6 first rounders if Gobert got us 4 kind of thing.
Right.
Or, we had to give up 4. So it's like the trade value and the way the trades went down, if you're going to try to win the value, again, if you're playing NBA 2K or you're playing Madden, you're always trying to win the trade, so to speak. So I feel like we didn't win the trade from a points perspective. You're going to put NFL, draft points kind of thing on it. But on paper, it set us up better for the future, better for the playoffs, better for the long run, long haul. And I think it's hard to see that until you kind of see it unfold here in the playoffs. Like, okay, I see what we're doing here. I love it.
Yep, great point. All right, let's move quick to the Wild so that we can get plenty of draft talk in.
Plenty of draft, yes.
All right, so Wild lost their series lead last night. Or no, they tied it up, getting the 2 games mixed up.
Yep, same.
So we're tied.
They lost the first game, but won the second.
Yep.
And then we had to go back home again, splitting the series. Which, again, you go on the road, you split the series, you got to be happy, right?
Yeah.
As the perceived underdog in each case. So.
And when we're talking about star power once again, like,
oh my God,
the Kirill Kaprizov, Matt Boldy, that is a connection in Minnesota, a talent. Like, we were waiting so long to get that one superstar. Like, We had Marion
we've got
Gabrick,
that
and we were
one.
like, oh,
Yep.
we need another Marion Gabrick. And then we got Kaprizov, which is like Marion Gabrick times 100. And
Yep.
then
If he
and then
stays
we get
healthy.
yes, and then we get Boldy, and now you play them on the same line, and they just seem to start having that line mate communication, knowing where each other are, knowing where they're going to be, and it's again unfolding right in front of us. And I think in my article this morning, I think they have 10 points. They had 10 points last night, and Kaprizov and Boldy had 5 of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say because they each had.
Kaprizov had 2 goals
Kaprizov had
and
2
an
goals
assist, and
then
Boldy had an
2
assist and a
assists and
goal. 1 assist and a goal.
Or 1 assist and 1 goal.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Like you and I are talking again offline here a few days back or a week back or whatever it is, and probably paid attention to the Wild a little bit more this year than I ever have. But part of it is the hot start they had. You start looking at the core they have, even as far as their prospects. You start to look at Zeev. You start to look at. I mean, they got a top 5, top 10 prospect pool, depending on who you got graduating, who you don't, whatever. But
yep,
you look at that. I mean, this is an exciting team all around. And if I think they've got the cap space now, so they'll go and they'll get a Kaprizov his extension.
Yep. And
I don't know what
probably
that leaves for
sign
other
another
people.
player too.
Yep, sign another player too. So you look at the future, and it's fun. And then, like you said, you get the Boldy Kaprizov connection for the next 5 to 10 years. Which
I know.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, that's crazy.
And
then
Boldy's already signed. He signed a cheap deal. He signed an 8-year deal like early on because he just wanted the security.
I didn't really realize it. Again, I don't know the free agency or the market nearly as well in hockey. And then we haven't spoken on the defense side. You got Faber and you got Z. How do you say it? Bulliam? Bulliam.
Yep.
So you look at that, and then and then obviously we still got, Spurgeon. I mean, the defense is set for quite some time. You got your transition plan for the future. So, and then if Jesper can come back and learn how to goaltend again, and kind of after his off season, like it's pretty wild. And then all the cap space, like it's pretty wild what this team could do or should do potentially if they stay healthy. One thing I do not understand for the life of me, so maybe we got to get some hockey people to chime in at some point here, but why do they hate Marco Rossi? I don't understand it. He was a top 10 draft pick that shouldn't have dropped even to where he did. He puts up points. Like, again, I'm not a hockey guy, so I can't tell if there's different assignments he missed, and I don't know if there's things that he's not doing or not practicing hard, but I haven't heard character issues. I haven't heard that he goes and he's a drunk on the weekends or he doesn't show up to practice. I haven't heard any of that. Like, what is it?
Yeah, well, that's the question. I don't really know. I was asking that today in my What We Learned article because Rossi played 9 minutes last night, played 12 minutes in Game 1. He is the second leading either goal scorer or assist scorer, second in points on the Wild. He's in the top 3 in every major category for the regular season. And for whatever reason, Bill Guerin, and I think it's more Guerin than it is Hines. I just think Guerin from the very beginning has not liked Marco Rossi, and
But he drafted him.
I think but he drafted him. So the way that the Rossi draft pick kind of happened was kind of like, it reminds you of like Brooks Lee for the Twins.
He shouldn't have dropped there. So many good
where
players
he shouldn't have dropped there. He was
he
was a talent who, like, the last like elite talent of that draft.
Yep.
And so they picked him, but I think his size, and that's where I don't really understand, because it's definitely something about his game, because when they've asked him to stay, like, he didn't go and play in any of the national stuff the last couple off seasons because the Wild wanted him to stay in town and work with their skating coach, work with them. So he did that. Didn't go back overseas. Like, he's from Sweden, I don't know, somewhere overseas, one of those European countries. And so he normally would go back, didn't go back, has worked hard, done everything that they asked him to, hasn't complained. So it's got to be just something about his game that Bill Guerin doesn't like, but I don't know enough about hockey to really understand what it is about his game that he doesn't like. I know that he's a little bit undersized. Is he afraid to get into the hard spaces, as they call it in the hockey world? I'm not 100% sure. Brandon dropped off here, but we got him back. So I have up here, Brandon. I think you can see it. I set up our screen share so that hopefully you can see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
So here is Matt Boldy's contract status, making $7 million from now until 2029, 2030. $7 million a year.
And then you go, and depending on, you'll have a max salary of whatever that is for
by
Kaprizov, I would assume.
Yeah, Kaprizov, because the cap's expected to go up, he's gonna get like $15 million a year, which is gonna make Boldy's like.
It's gonna make that look like an absolute bargain. It's gonna be like a Neil Hunter kind of like NFL sort of contract in the next coming years.
The steelest of steals. Like, unbelievable. $7 million it's just crazy. So yeah, that's Matt Boldy's contract.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing with the Wild. I mean, that's just, now that they finally, to think that they were able to navigate the Suter and Parise contracts and still be somewhat competitive for the most part, but still stock the shelves with talent. Like, I was actually, for whatever reason, I was looking at the Fiala trade and just kind of looking like, oh, that's right, because Fiala had a decent year. You know, basically he did exactly what he did with the Wild. You know, his last year where he kind of started, 25 goal scorer, 30 assists. You know, somewhere hovering 40, 50 points, somewhere in there. But then you go and you look at that return, and you got Brock Faber and
a first-round pick.
A first-round pick that turned into what's his name?
Ogren, I think.
Ogren, yeah, Liam Ogren, yep. So you look at that. So just looking kind of the way they navigated some of those trades and set themselves up for the future, like the Wild should be, and again, I mean, if you're the state of hockey, you should be able to track that free agent talent. So now that you've got some flexibility and the cap's going to go up even more.
Yeah, and
it could be really fun and exciting in the upcoming years.
And I think Guerin could have gone about it better too, because like you look at some of the contract extensions that he signed, like Ryan Hartman got a contract extension.
I know.
Foligno got a contract extension. Johansson got a contract. Like, you can go down the list, and they all got no trade clauses too. Like, so with all the things that he did right, you can still go back, pick apart things that in the moment you were like, I don't know if this was a good idea, but it's hard. You can't argue with the results. I mean, the talent that he's put together, and yeah, like you said, being able to pull the Wild into the playoffs. They didn't make it last year, but being able to be a consistent, regular playoff team while dealing with Zach Parise and Ryan Suter, trying to sink the entire franchise while they were here, and then they leave and you have to deal with their $15 million on the books that is worthless. So to be able to navigate that, and then now this offseason, they're supposed to be able to stock up, sign Kaprizov to an extension, and then stock up with a couple more elite talents. You don't ever like to look into the future as a Minnesota sports fan and say, I feel really good about where this team is going, because the moment that you say that is the moment that everything derails faster than you even get it out of your mouth.
But isn't that part of being a Minnesota sports fan, is that you kind of live on optimism over results, unfortunately?
Yeah, if you lived on results, you'd be living off the bridge.
You'd be living 6 feet under at that point, because you've never been fed.
Exactly. All right, so that's Wild. Wild played tomorrow night, Thursday, 8 o'clock, and then the Wolves are back on Friday night, thank God, because I tried to do 2 What We Learned articles last night. And let's just say the Wild one didn't get up until noon today because...
Well, I mean, for you people that aren't on Pacific time zones, I mean, didn't they start at about 1 a.m. or 2 a.m.
10 p.m., dude, 10 p.m.
That's
last
insane.
night.
I was dead asleep at that point, and for an hour or two, like... I just couldn't. Central time zone, you can deal with it. East Coast time zone, as a sports fan, impossible. You can't be a functioning adult living in those.
I don't know how anybody lives on the East Coast in that time zone. Period.
It just doesn't make sense.
What everybody else is like, just carrying on with their day, and it's like you're going to bed. It's almost you might as well live in Alaska and just have like everything either be dark or light and just not be on the same schedule as anybody else. That's what I feel like the East Coast is, just different than everybody.
Absolutely different, but none of it is like to go and you think like watching a game last night. That game would start on the East Coast at
11.
It started at 10:30, 11 o'clock
11
or later to start a
p.m.
game.
Yep. If you're a Wild fan on the East Coast last night, you had to stay up until 2 a.m. just to watch the end of the game. That's insane. I mean, what are you doing as the NHL? Like, how does that at all benefit your product, bring you more viewers, like make you more money, have more advertisers see your shit? From a business
There's nothing
standpoint,
strategic about that. There's nothing about that makes sense from a financial or strategic standpoint, that you're looking at it and go, okay, I see why they did it. Besides that, you just don't want to play 2 games, but you start the first game earlier and then you start
That's what I'm saying. So are they just looking at it and going, well, we'd rather have our East Coast games start at 7 p.m. like Central-ish time or 8 p.m. instead of 6? Because on the East, like now that's like 5 or whatever. Wouldn't you rather start them too early and have people tuning in like, oh, we're not done with supper yet, so we're a little bit upset that we didn't get to finish supper before we sat down to watch the game, than have people going, my kids didn't get to watch 1 second last night because they were in bed for 2 hours before the game even started?
I'd like to see what ratings, like if you kind of pulled the ratings from, a start time of 10 or 11 and then see
it has to be blatantly obvious.
It has to be insane. Like it's got to be a 70% drop off.
It has to be. I mean, not every single Wild fan is like psychopath. I will watch every second of the game. You got to imagine that 3/4 of every single fan base,
even as Vegas, West Coast, or here in Arizona or whatever, but like even thinking West Coast, like that's still a 9 o'clock start.
Yes.
Like I don't do that. I'm in bed already. Like I'm used to 5 o'clock starts. Monday Night Football starts at 5 o'clock.
Correct.
Vikings games start at 10 or 11. Like it's like I'm not used to late sports at all. Like that's why it's so nice living in this side of the country, because you can catch everything.
That's such a great point. Hold on. That is such a good point, because nobody talks about that side of it. Everybody goes, you know what? They start these games late because it's a West Coast team. So because it's a West Coast team, everybody on the West Coast, they're all used to, they don't want to have games starting at 4, 5, 6 o'clock.
We're used to games starting early.
They are used to it. That's how their lives work. Everything starts earlier on the West Coast. If you're on the East Coast, everything starts later on the East Coast.
Yes.
You're just used to that. So for the NHL or the NBA or whoever to throw it at us and be like, oh, we do it because you're playing a team from Vegas, you're playing a team from the West Coast, so we want to make sure their fans are ready to go too. No, that has nothing. Their fans are ready to go at 6 o'clock. Our fans are sleeping at 10 o'clock. Like that
There's
is
a reason
not.
The NHL is not the NFL. The NFL knows how to maximize their TV in every way, shape, and form. They will put a football game on a holiday at noon because they know that everybody's there watching. Like, yeah. And speaking of that, maybe that's a segue into the NFL.
You're right. Let's stop talking about the NHL. That's enough NHL talk. All right, let's talk draft. So the draft is tomorrow, which just seems absolutely insane.
Here.
It just every single year, it's like you look up, at the combine, and you look and you go, holy shit, we have a full month until we get to the draft, or even free agency.
You go and you look at
combine,
the
it's
now.
2 months. Combine, it's 2 months.
I was having this conversation with a colleague at work today, and we had to schedule a couple meetings. I looked, I'm like, we got to do it before month end, so let me take a look. I'm like, holy shit, that's next week. Like, I feel like April just completely. I mean, fast forward. I mean,
yes,
it was April 1st. I wake up today. It's 4:23. Like
it is crazy to me. It's. Like I said,
April has just flown by.
It feels like just yesterday we were watching and reporting on all the things that were going on at the combine, and then free agency hits, and it's already been over a month since like the start of free agency, which just seems like a week or two ago.
Free agency still feels like you're still kind of looking at your phone, looking for alerts or highlights of people getting signed, or thinking like, we could still bring in this guy. Like, it's wild. I'm excited as hell because the draft is my favorite thing ever, but it still feels like we're in free agency season. Like, it does not feel like the end of April right now. But Here we
So
are.
here we are. So Vikings are slotted tomorrow at pick number 24. Let's start there. Where do you see a Vikings trade back scenario? I know you've been like digging in everything for the last week. Where are you at right now? Are the Vikings going to trade back tomorrow from 24, or do they end up sticking and picking?
I think they would like to, but I think it all comes down to who's on the board, how far you got to trade back, who's willing to. So that's the thing about this draft. It's all going to come down to the guys that are on the board at pick 24. But this isn't an absolute stack draft. This isn't like the draft of last year. It's not, you don't have incredible, you don't have 5 starting caliber quarterbacks that are, top 10 picks potentially. You don't have, 3 wide receivers that are just absolutely elite. Like, there's a good draft, and it's a good draft for some of the players that the Vikings need or have that need for. But again, to trade back, it takes 2 to tango. I hope they do. I think they want to. If they could trade back 5, 6 spots, maybe the Bills, the Chiefs, something like that, and pick up an extra, second, third, whatever that compensation ends up being with everything else that gets factored in. I think they would like to if the right players are there. And again, you don't trade back if say you've got 3 guys that you really want, but you're trading back 10 spots. You probably don't take that risk either if the one guy that you want is on the board. So I think it could be very fluid based on who's on the board, the positions of need, who's willing to come up.
I saw
I don't
something
think
about.
anything's afterward. One thing I don't think is going to happen is I don't think they're trading up.
Well, yeah, I think that. I just. It would be. Even if they want to, I just don't think they have the capital to even try. I mean, not
No,
only
that's
this
just
year,
it.
but next year they've already dished out a
They've
bunch of
already
their
kinda dipped- yeah,
2026
they've dipped
picks
into
too.
that. So
And
that's why
I
I jokingly
think
say there's no, they're not trading up.
definitely not
That's
trading
one
up.
certain you have.
But I think that it's worth looking at how they handled last year, not just for whether or not they would trade up again this year, but in the future. You could just tell by the way Kevin O'Connell spoke the other day that they hate that they only have 4 draft picks right now. Like, they know they did it. They did it to themselves. I agree. But going through the process now, they hate it because, like Kevin O'Connell even said, he feels like they've done more work in this draft than they even have done in past drafts. And he said that they're going to hear names. They're going to hear names going off the board all draft long, and every single name they're going to be like, love that guy. Don't like they know this draft class up and down, and they're just in the moment. Not that they regret it, but in the moment they hate the fact that they only have 4 picks.
Hate not having the capital.
And so I just think going into the future, I expect them to be more careful about the draft pick. They're not going to go full Rams for 3, 4, 5 years. I just think that as an organization, they do not like not having these draft picks. They feel like they're just kind of pigeonholed into what they're able to do and what they're not. And if we know anything about this regime, they love and rely on flexibility. They want flexibility at all times. And right now, I just don't feel like they feel like they have that going into the draft.
No, and of course they don't have the flexibility. If you only have 4 draft picks, you don't have multiple high draft picks, you do not have that flexibility. But last year was a different year, so I feel like you're not going to be able to compare and contrast last year this year. Last year they forcibly got their way back in the first round to have that extra capital to try to move up for a quarterback if they needed to, or if they're going to try to get Drake May or whatever the plan was. So like last year they're executing off of entirely different prerogatives just because it was all quarterback or bust. There was no other question, going into it. It was just a matter of who did they like, who was going to be available, who they could trade up for, who was going to potentially fall.
Yep.
And then once they were able to, they couldn't secure Drake May, which I think was their number 1 target. But they were able to, get JJ to fall to who I think was their, number 2 target outside of, the top 2 quarterbacks as a whole. But so then when he fell, I think they're looking at it like, okay, we still have this second, first round draft pick. Now that we don't need to utilize that to trade up for a quarterback, let's go get the other guy that we really, really liked, or that Flores really, really liked. So their prerogative shifted entirely. But this year, I'm with you 100% in the fact that they do not want to. They have no flexibility. They don't have the capital. But this year, the focus has shifted entirely too, because Now we're not looking for the franchise quarterback of the future. Now we're literally looking for 1 or 2 or 3 guys to plug and play right now to go win right now. And that's where, say you had, just even a first, second, and a regular third with that comp pick, you might be looking at it like, hey, we go and get this interior offensive lineman, and then we go get this cornerback that might drop or this safety that might drop. We just got our 2 guys for now and the future to plug and play now and to fill those gaps in the future that we go win. So I feel like they probably do feel hamstrung. Like, we just need 1 or 2 more high picks this year, and we are completely set for now and the future.
Right. And instead, they're having to rely on hitting on these picks, which I think is what makes them
try to trade back and hope that one of those other guys, you got to get a little more savvy, or you've got to absolutely hit. So that's why I look at that first round pick. I don't know that you want to mess around with it too much. If you can trade back and only trade back 5 spots and one of your guys is still there, that's ideal. But again, you got to have 2 to tangle. And then 2, if you're trading back those slots, but you only have, I don't think you risk losing a Kelvin Banks or maybe a Gray Zabel, or, again, I don't know who their people are, but just
I think
guys.
So let's stop there and go. We don't know who they're targeting, who their people are. We think they like the Gray Zabel. We think they like Derek Harmon, etc. Okay, but like what you are looking at with this draft and who we expect to be around pick 20 to pick 30, like, who are the guys where if multiple of these guys end up available at 24, we could see a trade back. If these 5 guys are off the board and there's only 1 left, then they're probably sticking and picking. Like, who are your, handful of prospects who are, like, we know Gray Zabel, Derek Harmon, like, that they're keeping an eye on at 24 and dictating their strategy of whether or not they're willing to trade back, if they're going to stick and pick. Who are the players that they're looking at? If it were you, you don't know the Vikings, but if it were you, who do you think that they're kind of targeting at 24 and want to be available?
I think interior lineman is what jumps out right away, because 1, you need to solve for now, you need to solve for the future. And I don't think that they think that Blake Brandel is that
Agreed.
guy. And I don't think any of us have thought that. I mean, I like him in a swing tackle reserve role, and if you got to step in an injury, phenomenal value, right?
Yep.
He's a very high-end capable player in that regard. But when you're looking at it again, I've got a rookie quarterback, essentially rookie, that we're trying to build everything around. I want to keep him upright. The glaring hole, and again, you went out of your way in free agency to go get a center and a guard that actually had synergy from the same team, which is kind of wild at the same time.
Right.
But the one glaring hole that I feel like would have the biggest impact on success for the team and JJ McCarthy is left guard.
I agree. I left guard, and we talked about this off air.
Interior defensive lineman too. Like, there's a defensive tackle. Like, if one of those guys drop, great. But we don't need that necessarily for this year. Future, yes, but we've got 3 stud defensive tackles that we can rotate in different ways.
That's where that's where, if you're looking for somebody, the safest pick that will help you the most right now, 99%, it has to be a left guard. If you draft a Gray Zabel,
I figured it out. I got the philosophy. I know what it is. There's a legend that came back for 1 year to win a Super Bowl.
Oh, yes.
Who does he want? Who does he feel? If you got 1 year, and that's kind of the way I'm looking at it right now. If you've got 1 year to go and make that impact, to get that Super Bowl run, you've got cheap this, you've got cheap quarterback, you've got Harrison coming back for 1 year. And again, that's why, like a Starks at safety would make a lot of sense.
Yes.
But we don't necessarily need him right now, because I think we feel comfortable with Theo.
I think yes, and Theo is everything that reporters have been on the Theo train again, like these last couple days, with more Theo hype. Not just that the Vikings are telling us this, but I saw I think from Alec Lewis yesterday posted. It's not just last year or something. He goes, every time I see Theo Jackson on the practice field, he's making plays or whatever.
I heard that somewhere too.
So
Harrison might have even said that.
Yeah. So they're jumping on his hype train even more. So I understand that part of it. For me, the safety conversation comes into, are you getting another Harrison Smith? If you think that if you think that Starks is gonna be a Hall of Fame safety, if that's the type of talent that you think that he is, I'm taking safety over offensive guard. Because we've seen what Harrison Smith can do for your franchise, for your secondary, for your defense, not just like now, because a Starks would help right now, but for the next 10 years. Like, you put a staple right there. Safeties are not that expensive, like, going in the future. So if you think Starks is that guy, then I'm in. But like you said, if you're not sure, if you're looking, if you don't see him as that type of talent, or you're not sure he's that type of talent, and you're looking to improve the team as much as you can right now, then I agree. It is left guard. It's Gray Zabel. It's this Tyler Booker. Not only do they have, like, hey, you can plug these guys in like the draft profiles, you can plug these guys in right now and they can play and be productive, but the position that they play, offensive guard, is literally the easiest spot on your entire roster to hit with your first round pick in the draft. They have like a 75% hit rate when drafted in the first round. Like, if you draft a guard in the first round, based on history, it's like a 75% chance that they are going to play X amount of snaps over the next like 4 or 5 years. At other positions, you just don't have that. And not only that, but you drop this left guard in between Christian Darrisaw and Ryan Kelly. Now it's even more likely that he's going to succeed. So, again, like you said, if we're drafting for somebody who can help us win right now, left guard just seems like the most obvious spot.
Yeah, I feel left guard is a glaring spot. And again, if we look at position flexibility, you got Gray Zabel, who can play guard. He played tackle all through college. They're thinking he could slide in and be your future center. So you've got different things, flexibility for the future or injuries. You look at Kelvin Banks, which I don't think he'll drop, but if he did, he's played tackle forever. They think he'll, profile better as a guard because of the short arms and, the whole short arm syndrome kind of thing. But again, you got position flexibility potentially. We've seen Darrisaw, we've seen O'Neal get dinged up. So you got a guy that can kick out and play that. Or Darrisaw, maybe he's not ready to start the season. So you look at that, there's a position flexibility that I think is important. So I feel like at a position as a whole, left guard is kind of where your target is. But then what it comes down to is, like you said, if there's that one player, then we don't know, what their scouting department says, but there's that one player that they think is Hall of Fame potential, plug and play, whether it's Malachi Starks, maybe it's Will Johnson at quarterback, maybe it's Colson Loveland at tight end. Like, I kind of had that conversation around tight end. I don't think they're looking wide receiver, but tight end might be an interesting spot to look at because I think they want to run more 12 personnel. I think they want to run the ball as a whole more this year.
Yep.
So you get two tight ends on the field, and all of a sudden you got a receiving threat, but a bigger blocking threat than a wide receiver. So it's like there's some of those different things too. It's fun because they're in such a great position because we had such a phenomenal free agency that we're not pigeonholed at a position.
No,
left
I agree.
guard is the biggest glaring hole, but it's not an absolute like do or die. So then if you get one of those guys to drop, and that's what also helps us too. You're looking at a trade down scenario. Maybe a Starks elicits some attention from some other teams that need a safety. Maybe Colson Loveland, maybe one of those wide receivers. There's a lot of DNs right in that area too. And that Kenneth Grant, we're in a really good spot that somebody might fall, which could, hopefully drive that trade down potential for us. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of good talent there that fit our need that are going to be in that spot somewhere. That if that coaching staff, that scouting department really, really like a guy, we don't have to go, interior lineman. And again, maybe you take that third round comp pick and trying to think who might drop into, let me look at this. But I feel like there's probably a couple of guys that maybe drop into, and maybe then you trade up into the late second round, which then you don't have to give up that much compensation.
Well, yeah, and that is the one thing that I've been noticing the more that obviously you've been digging into this draft.
Tate Radledge from Georgia. There's a guy that's a PF rank of 68. So you're looking late second round. Maybe that's the guy that they like, that they feel can plug and play me. 6'6", 320. He's got the size.
Well, I just think there's a lot of guys that they might be targeting. You see and I don't think they're targeting that Justin Simmons, the tackle out of Ohio State. But there's just, whether it's Gray Zabel, whether it's that Booker, Malachi Starks, the other safety with the weird last name, like all of those guys happen to be just like, depending on which mock draft you run or which one you look at, there are one of those guys somewhere available at 24, and a lot of times there's multiple. So that's where I can definitely see a trade back happening. If we're at 22 and Zabel and Booker and Starks and they have 5 guys that they're interested in, obviously then a trade makes sense. It's if those guys, that's what I'm going to be watching for as we go through the first round. Does Gray Zabel go at 15? Does Booker go at 20? Does Malachi Starks get taken in the top 20 when a lot of people don't see him going until 25, 24? A lot of it will depend on, like, even you look at like Jackson Dart, like he could throw a curveball in there because he could end up being selected in the top 24 when it would have been Gray Zabel. It would have been somebody that the Vikings are interested in. So that's, as we're watching the first round unfold, my eyes are just going to be locked in on the, handful to 2 handfuls of players, offensive guards, safeties, that we have seen linked to
cornerbacks potentially. You got like the
corners,
and you've got a couple of those guys. There's that.
Where do those guys start going, and when do we see them start going? If it's possible, we get to like 15 and we haven't seen any of them go yet. Like none of them. Jade Barron, Starks, Zabel, they could all still be there at 15. And then if you're the Vikings, you're starting to salivate at that point because now you're thinking we can trade back, still get one of our guys. So that's what I'm going to be watching for sure.
It's going to be interesting because outside of, we'll say maybe the top 6, I think it's a complete just crapshoot from that point because you know that Hunter's going to go, you know that Abdul Carter's going to go, you know that Genty's going to go probably. I think he's going to go top 5. I think the Jags or somebody's going to trade up for him. I think he's just too big of a talent. I'm really afraid of the Bears trying to go get Genty. That I think that would, as an in division with what's his face coming from Detroit over to Chicago and running that same kind of run scheme. I think that could be an issue for the Vikings going forward. I mean, I think the Bears are still a little ways away. I'm not a big believer in Caleb Williams, but I think he's gonna go top 5. So then that's outside of that though. You start looking at some of the names, and I'm just gonna go PFF's big board. Mason Graham is gonna go right away. Will Campbell gonna go right away. But people are pretty split on Walter Nolan. I've seen him going top 10. I see him going late 20s. You go and you look at Malachi Starks. They got him ranked at the 8th spot. I've seen him go in the top 15. I've seen him drop all the way out to the, almost out of the first round. Like, there's not a lot of consensus outside of the very, very top tier talent. And it's not a very top heavy elite talent draft, but there's some really, really good players. And it's really deep from an interior lineman, interior defensive lineman, running back is really, really deep. You got some different guys there that, I can see us, even with the Mason trade, I think that you go scoop someone up in one of those later rounds. There's some really good talent that might drop there. But
so I've got ESPN's draft simulator up.
Okay.
I ran through just the first 10 picks so far, and then I paused it. Cam Ward, Abdul Carter. You can see it up on your screen, right?
Travis Hunter, Genty.
So Genty goes 4. So the first guy that we've even mentioned is that Will Campbell and Will Johnson gone 7 and 10. I just want to run this for a little bit longer here. Let's see. There's Colston Loveland goes 12. Okay, but here we are, right? We're at 16. Everybody is still on the board. Jade Barron, Eamon Wari, Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan, Josh Simmons, Tyler Booker, Malachi Starks. All these guys are still on the board. We're at 16 now.
That's why I say, like, we're in a really good spot for the positions of need, and kind of, again, like, if you're in a top 5 pick, you're gonna get one of those guys.
Right.
But pick five, 6, all the way to 36, you're kind of in that same range. Like,
Right.
there's not a big difference with a lot of those guys. So that's why I look at us being in a really good position. But somebody else going to want to possibly get one of those guys. So there's your trade back. But otherwise, we're going to get really good talent of one of those guys that they're going to like a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, so we're on the Broncos now at pick 20. Jahdae Barron is really the only guy that we've seen mocked to the Vikings a lot that's off the board so far.
But again, a cornerback, they might go. There's other cornerbacks. There's,
so there goes Derek Harmon. So, again, so now we got the Packers at 23. That Eman Wari is still on the board. Walter Nolan's still on the board. Josh Simmons. Like, this is where
Gray Zabel's still there.
Gray Zabel is still there. So this is where I have kind of talked down the trade back scenario for the Vikings a little bit. But if you get to 24 and there's still 5 guys that you're comfortable with taking, it wouldn't make sense not to draft,
if you've got somebody that wants to come up, and then again, it takes 2 to tango. But that's why I feel like there's going to be a handful of guys that they're going to be interested in, as long as they're not dropping back 15, 20 spots.
Well, that's so I think that matters too. Nobody's talking about this, but I definitely think that it matters that when you do your trade back, in a perfect world, and I'm not saying that this is make or break whether or not they're going to trade back, but I think it definitely matters that when they trade back, they try to stay in the first round, because you just ruin so much. You hurt the fan base.
Optics, you got the fan base because everybody's excited. They have that. But
you build the draft up to be this huge, massive event, and then you pull the plug early. It's like you plan a New Year's party, the greatest New Year's party of all time, and then at 11 p.m. you pull the plug and you tell everybody that they have to go home. The ball hasn't even dropped yet. Nobody got excited. Like, that is what it's like when you're trade back.
I don't know who could do this or how it would happen, but what if you trade out of the first round, but you only get 2 day 2 picks, 2 second-round picks, or a very early second, a very early third, and all of a sudden your Friday draft becomes exciting? Because right now we have no reason to want to watch Friday because we got nothing. We got the very last pick of the 3rd round, so it's like,
I agree with you I think that would help from like the overall fan standpoint. It definitely wouldn't help US Bank Stadium on Thursday night.
No, not at the
draft party. Not Paul Allen. Paul Allen won't be happy about it.
No, but if you only get, you trade back to, 33, 34, maybe make a trade with the Browns or something like that, and you get another second, 3rd round pick, and all of a sudden you still get one of those guys that we're looking at, and then you go get another pick, and all of a sudden we're pretty happy about that.
Should we see what trades we got? So we've got all sorts of guys that we still want.
We got all sorts. We got at least 5, 6, 7 guys.
Houston Texans. Well, come on, it's not gonna. So we have to propose a trade in this? They're not gonna send us trade requests? Well, we don't want to do that. I like the PFF one where it gives you them. I'm not gonna go through and try and pick out. Dang it. Okay, well, I guess we're picking. So Eman Wari, Nolan, and again, I'm not like trying to pick and do a mock draft. That's not why we're here. It's more so just to see who's going to be available.
To show that there's going to be a lot of talent there that we don't have to get anxious. Again, the idea would be that this kind of solidifies the thought process that we would probably, again, in a perfect world, we want to trade back because there is enough of that talent. There's nobody at 24. Again, maybe somebody that I think like a Kelvin Banks or something like that, I feel like is maybe a top tier talent. But outside of a Mason Graham, Kelvin Banks, one of those guys that shouldn't drop at all, dropping to 24, I don't think there's anybody at 24 that you're so high on that you're not going to be able to get at 30 or 32 or whatever that pick might be. Because as you're looking right here, there is a plethora of talent there that fits the mold.
And I think, the Jackson Dart thing intrigues me a lot, especially, and people haven't really been thinking about this, But if Shadur Sanders starts to drop, and let's say he makes like
I could see
drops
him
down
dropping
to
like the Steelers at
9,
like a
10,
21.
11.
I
Like,
could see him going all the way to the Steelers at like 21 or whatever pick they're at. They're somewhere in that range, I think.
so
Yeah, 21.
if that were to happen, Jackson Dart to me is still going in the first round.
I think he's going to the first round.
It's
That's another team.
possible the
That's a
Vikings
Giants.
could be the team
Giants going. What
that
are the Giants pick?
that facilitates a Dart trade. And if it's a quarterback, that's different than a team trading to 24 for some random pick. They will give up more for who they think can be their future quarterback than they would if they're drafting a random defensive tackle.
Look at the Browns and the Giants at 33 and 34. Neither of them have a starting quarterback. I think Joe Flacco is slated to start for the Browns, and the Giants have absolutely not. Who they bring in? Did they bring in Russell Wilson or something maybe?
Yeah.
But if you're still looking.
Well,
for
the Browns,
future, right?
the Browns have
Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco, and the Giants.
I think the Giants brought in Russell Wilson.
Yep, you're right.
Isn't that who they signed? Mr.
Yep,
Unlimited?
I think you're right. Yep, Mr. Unlimited.
Mr. Unlimited. God, he's the most fucking cringe dude of all time. I still can't handle it.
He's the worst. Him and Cat are right up there next to each other.
Yeah, they are. But that's where I look at 33 and 34. There's your two teams potentially trading up. Both of them need a quarterback. Again, depending on, what happens if, the Browns obviously are going to.
I mean, the Raiders.
Yeah, the Titans are going Cam Ward, pick number 1. So then the Browns are left holding it back. I don't think they're taking Shadur at, pick 2. So I think you got pick 33 and pick 34 that your prime candidates to move up in the first round. And like you said, if you're going to get a quarterback and they're worried about the other team or someone else jumping them, or if Kwesi can run the phone lines and scare the shit out of these guys.
Good luck.
I know. I'm living in a fucking fairy tale world. I get it. But in a perfect world, and we just, for simplicity's sake, so our comeback to Minnesota Sports Fan podcast, if he can out-negotiate someone for the first time in a trade scenario, you've got a team that goes and maybe gives you additional compensation. You go get that quarterback, and then you're back in the ball game on day 2 with a couple, multiple picks, 3 picks.
Not only that, but there's also a tax to be paid if you're 33 and you're going up to get that fifth year on a quarterback.
That 5th year, exactly. That's the thing. So that's
and there's also a tax to be paid. And I know, again, I already brought it up, but there's a tax to be paid if you're the Vikings and hey, guess what? Kevin Stefanski, you were here long enough. You know how big this draft party is. If we have to end this draft party early and tell everybody to go home, there's a tax for that too. Like, if the Browns or the Giants want to move up to 24, it won't be cheap if it's for a quarterback. So again, yeah, we can talk all of this all we want. I won't believe that Kwesi is going to fleece anybody until it happens.
I agree 100%. But even if you can just get fair value, not the Detroit Lions type of a trade, like, it's just make it make sense.
Yeah, if you can make it make sense, then
make it make sense. And then, because again, as we see, we're going to get similar talents, whether it's, interior linemen, whether you're looking at, the Gray Zables,
there's going to be talent available. That much is for sure.
Bookers.
Unless the draft really just like goes 100% like against us, which is possible.
But it really can't though, because we're not targeting just 2 or 3 people that are make or break. There's a long list of dudes out there that would help this team, whether it's interior line or safety or tight end. And again, you look at every quarterback that goes helps us significantly. What we haven't even spoke on, and I don't remember what wide receivers have gone in this mock over here. It's a little bit small on my screen, so I don't feel like putting my eyeball
right now. We still have on the board Jaden Higgins, Trey Harris, Luther Burden.
Go look at the wide receivers that have went. Did Tetra McMillan go?
Matthew Golden, Ugbuka. Yeah, okay, McMillan went 13 to the Dolphins.
Okay. So you look at some of those guys, and again, I don't think we're drafting a wide receiver that high. So any of those guys that go, whether it's Golden, Emeka, Burden, Tetra McMillan, any of those guys, that's 4 or 5 picks that are out of the way that we have really no interest in those guys. And wide receivers always go high, even when they aren't necessarily the blue chip guys of some years. But so every quarterback, so you got 3 or 4 wide receivers and 2 to 3 quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, we got
There's already
we got 3 quarterbacks because Dart went number 21 to the Steelers.
which he very well might. Again, it's smokescreen signals season, so it's like if people really like Jackson Dart, they're not going to say it.
No, I agree. I definitely agree.
So you get Shador, you get Dart, you get Cam Ward that all possibly go in the first round. Then you get those 4 receivers that possibly go in the first round, and then you got your blue chip guys at Travis
Couple
Hunter,
tight ends.
couple tight ends. Like it's
And
gonna be
you're
a
gonna have
pretty
edge
extensive
rushers
list.
go to.
And their edge rushers are absolutely going to go. I mean, those are some of the most coveted
Yeah,
positions.
I agree with you. I think that worst case scenario, you get to 24 and there's probably like 2 guys that they were targeting from the very beginning that are available. That at that point they just stick and pick.
Yep.
But yeah, I would say more than likely, if they are interested in the guys we think they're interested in, the Malachi Starks, the Gray Zables, the Bookers, there should be 4 to 5 guys still on the board that they would be interested in taking. And if that's the case, then I would expect a trade back. And if more of those guys get taken than expected, then yeah, worst case, they're sticking and picking a Gray Zabel at 24 because he's only like one of 2 guys. Him and Tyler Booker are the only guys left on the board because everybody else.
I do want to call out. I don't think it's gonna be Booker. I don't think he's a good fit for the Vikings. Again, but there's your interior lineman that'll go somewhere. Somebody's gonna like him. He's a great player. He's at Alabama, but I don't think he's the guy they're targeting.
What doesn't fit the Vikings scheme and from what he does?
I think he is. I'm trying to think what I've read.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
No, not putting me on the spot here.
I
think
know
he's a gap heavy run scheme guy versus more of a zone scheme that we like to run. I want to say he's more of a man or gap heavy.
And
if I can recall.
To be fair, I've definitely seen more of the Gray Zabel scheme. I'm trying to.
Again, I mean that's us guys that aren't in the film, but that's kind of where the things I've heard about. Like I said, I want to see he's more of a gap heavy kind of run scheme guy where I think O'Connell's more of the zone scheme and things of that nature.
So right on the board right now, we've got Booker, Zabel this is for guards. The Jonas, I can't say that last name, and then Donovan Jackson. And then if we go over to the tackles, Josh Simmons is definitely a name that I see all over like where the Vikings are, but not necessarily like that the Vikings are interested in him or that he's definitely one of those guys that I see over and over again at 22, 25, 26.
Yeah, he's right in there. I mean, PFF's got him ranked at 18. He's a pure tackle. The problem is we just don't need a pure tackle.
Yeah,
and there's a little bit. He got hurt this year, so there's a little bit of just the injury concern and stuff with him. But that's why you're not seeing him mocked to the Vikings because he's a tackle.
So you saying that they're probably not as interested in Booker, that intrigues me because just looking at this right now, if you're looking at the guards and they're not interested in Booker, are there any of these other guys that they would be interested in at 24 other than Gray Zabel? Let's say Gray Zabel goes at 22. Are we out of luck right now on offensive linemen? Because if so, that just makes me kind of not necessarily rethink it because we don't know. If we go based off of what the vibes the Vikings are giving off, then they are not interested in safeties. Like we think the Vikings might be smoke screening, right? But they are trying to make it very clear that they do not want a safety. So if we take them at their word that they don't want a safety, like who's left on the board? There's guard, corner. We've got Hairston. Azira Thomas, Trey Amos. The tight ends are gone at this point. Josh Simmons is strictly a tackle. Like maybe there's just not as much.
But then go look at who your interior defenders and who are your interior defensive
Walter
linemen.
Nolan, Kenneth Grant.
There you go. Then you look at those guys, and those are two guys that are probably not going to fall there, or two guys that people might want to go trade up for. So that's where I go, because you look at, again, I'll look at PFF's board.
But are you just sticking him, like, let's say this is your situation. Let's say Gray Zabel is there, but I want to take him off the board just for
this fun.
So let's say he's off the board now. From what you're telling me, there aren't really any guards, offensive linemen right now that they're going to be all that interested in. Do you really want to trade back now? Because you don't have a lot of talent left available. Or are you sticking and picking Walter Nolan, Kenneth Grant, and just bulking
Who
up
else is on your board?
interior?
So did Jalen Walker go? Did Matthew Goldingson went? Kenneth Grant, would it be a phenomenal pick?
Kenneth Grant is still there.
That would be a
Walter Nolan is still there.
Walter Nolan, again, he ranges a little bit different, but PFF has him at the 7 overall. His PFF score last year was 88.9. He was the 8th highest rated interior defender in the entire college football. He was a little bit of a late bloomer. I shouldn't say late bloomer. He just didn't really come on. He was a number, I think, again, just people are going to probably correct me here if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. I think he was the number 2 overall prospect coming out of high school, that his graduating year. Like, he's a blue chip guy. I think he transferred from Ole Miss from Texas A&M, or transferred to Ole Miss from Texas A&M, something like that. But that's a guy that people look at as blue chip, and come tomorrow, you might see him go in the top 10. So that might be one of those guys that you're like, holy shit, he shouldn't have fallen there. We got to go get him. And again,
here you're jumping on Walter Nolan if he were to actually be there at 24.
Or Kenneth Grant. I like Kenneth Grant a lot too at that spot, because there's your true mauler that is a true nose guard that is going to plug the trenches and get that, that run game. And he's got some pass rush skill too. But again, he was PFF scored last year of 83.7, the 25th overall defensive interior lineman in the entire league, or entire all of college football.
Yeah.
So those are 2 blue chip guys right there at the same time. So you're looking at it at your 24, you got 3 guys that you feel really, 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 really comfortable with, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's more so.
Is Mike Green still on the board on your draft board? Edge rusher?
Mike Green is still there, yep. So is James Pierce.
Jesus. Those are 2 guys that we don't necessarily need because
you just traded your entire future for Dallas Turner last year.
Exactly, and you got 2 other all-pro caliber guys there. So those are 2 guys that, are trade-up potential. But Mike Green had a 90. So again, smaller school, Marshall, to 2023, a 90.4 PFF grade. 2024, 92.4 PFF grade, second in all of college football at his position.
But if you draft on the defensive line, we are probably talking about guys that fans would have to prepare themselves. We might see these guys just like we saw Dallas Turner, but there's no guarantee that these guys are going to jump the already in place talent that the Vikings have. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying if you're trying to use this first pick, the number 24 pick, if you trade back, whatever, if you're trying to use it for a player that can help you right now plug and play a position.
That's where that guard. That's like we kind of started the conversation.
I know, but that's where I go, like, Gray Zabel is really the only, and he's still available in this mock. But in a world where one less wide receiver goes and Gray Zabel goes instead, now we're looking at a draft board where the Vikings are going, we either have to go corner or somewhere on the defensive line, and we're adding depth and future talent more so than we're adding a guy who we know is going to plug and play week 1, week 2, week 3 and help us.
Yeah, but we're looking at one draft right here. But what I'm showing you or telling you, or outlining is that we've got elite talent that didn't go. So the world that we're living in this mock draft, I don't think is going to be the world that we're going to be living in tomorrow. Meaning that there's probably going to be 1, 2, or 3 more of the possibly interior linemen that we're talking about maybe there.
Right. No, I see what you're saying, because you think
So that's
that
kind of where
Pierce,
I go.
Green, those guys are going to be gone.
Yeah, I mean, look at edge rushers, man. Edge rushers are the most highly coveted position, one of the highest paid positions. Like, I just don't see any of those guys really falling. Let me go look at edge rushers here real quick and just. So did Azaruka go in your draft or your
Nope,
mock?
he's still there too.
He's still there.
Yep, we've got
you're saying
Pierce Jr., Green, Ezaruka, Birch, Oladejo.
Shamar Stewart still there?
Shamar Stewart, I think, just went. He went to the. No, hold on. Yeah, he went to the Packers right before us.
But I mean, you're talking again, depending on people's boards. You're talking.
Is there any
entire first round that?
Is there any chance Derek Harmon goes above like Walter Nolan?
I think so.
Because you just talking about how much how good Nolan is or whatever. They have Harmon's already gone. He went 22 to the Chargers, and
I can see that going. Again, you're looking at defensive tackle. You got that one guy that's got that, that pass rush, pass.
Yeah, that's true. He offers more flexibility. Yeah,
potentially. Again, it all kind of comes down to the people picking. But again, any scenario you look at, if say instead of taking, Harmon, the Packers went and they took Zabel. That means we got Harmon or Grant to choose from, or somebody else comes up. So like any scenario you look at, you take one good player off the board, but it adds another really good player. And
for sure.
I don't see a world where only 1 or 2 of the premier edge rushers go in the entire first round. There's just
you're right.
That just doesn't happen. It only happens in mock drafts.
I agree.
If anything, you're gonna go and look at one of those edge rushers that are like ranked in the 40s in most drafts, go in the first round and be like, holy shit, didn't see that coming.
Yeah. Pretty much what we're telling those watching and listening is like, when you're watching the draft tomorrow, you want to see, when you hear the do-do-do-do, like, you want to see quarterback.
You want to see a trade.
You want to see.
I'm
saying before the
teams,
Vikings,
yes.
Picks 1 through 23. You want to see corners. You want to see edge rushers, wide receivers, quarterbacks.
We might want to restock the cornerback room.
Yeah, but we're not restocking cornerback in the first round. I don't think not happening.
Yeah, unless
I would
Johnson
be shocked
or something like that falls.
Yes, I would say that they have a couple high-end guys that, hey, if this guy falls 24, we might take him. But from everything that we've kind of been hearing, it just doesn't seem like corner is where they're looking for that first pick. I would say
you really want to see the edge, linebackers probably, because again we're pretty stacked at linebacker. I mean, our interior. I mean, Cashman's an absolute beast. Like, so even linebackers, I don't think we have any reason for a linebacker. We really don't have any reason for an edge defender. So you look at edge defenders, linebackers. You can kind of throw cornerbacks in there, but tackles.
And then, do you believe them when it comes to safety?
I don't believe them, and not at all, because I look at why would you? I mean, maybe you don't want it necessarily for the first round. Again, if you're trying to win this year, one and done kind of mentality, you're looking guard the best, any scenario that you can. But safety, I look at what Harrison Smith has done for this defense since 2012. I mean, the better half of the decade. It's like, if you could get somebody that is like him to learn from him, and I feel that maybe Harrison goes into coaching after this. I feel like I don't know that his football career is done, because he's such a cerebral player that is adopted to the game in so many different ways, that why wouldn't you want him to come in as a mentor to one of these guys and have your next safety for the next decade? So I don't believe the Smokes. I'm not saying that they're absolutely targeting a safety, but I don't think it's off the table if they really like Malachi Starks. They like that Nick and whatever that weird name that I don't know how to pronounce.
Yeah.
Or there's also that there's that kid from Notre Dame that I really, really like too, that I feel like fits.
Xavier
what the hell
Watts.
is his name? Xavier Watts, yes. So again, I feel like nothing's really off the table. We're in a pretty advantageous position because we had such a great free agency for the last 2 years, for that matter. Holy shit.
Well, yeah, and last year was a more impressive class because they didn't have a lot of money to work with and still made it happen.
But we hit on everything at bargain deals. I mean, you look at, does it hurt to lose to Neil Hunter? Yeah, maybe, but you bring in a guy it should have, but you bring a guy and get the same production for half his price. Like, wow.
Yeah, no, I
you
mean,
look at the deal we got for Van Ginkel, like, Jesus Christ, the steal of a lifetime right there.
yeah, the last year's free agency class single-handedly saved Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah's job.
Yep, Brian Cashman, absolutely.
It just you can go down the whole list. I mean, if you are going to have as bad of draft luck as Kwesi has had, the only way to keep your job is to literally hit on pretty much every other move you make, which he has done. You look at the Hawkinson trade. You look at the free agents that they've picked up. He's pretty much hit on everything except
he hasn't done it in a way like the Rams did. He's done it very methodically, very smart, financially sound, but yet
using his coaches. His coaches to go, what talent do you like? What talent do you want to coach? Because I think an underrated aspect of how much the coaches play into it, and I know Kwesi takes his heat. I've given it to him, whatever. But when you put the onus on the coaches, once they get that player in-house, they feel a responsibility to make him work. And, hey, I was the one who helped identify this guy as somebody we can go and get and make better than what he's worth. I better prove that I was right with my evaluation, whereas if GMs or decision makers just drop talent onto coaches, it's like they don't have any personal vendetta like built into it. It's like, well, he gets here, he sucks for the first couple practices or doesn't play well for a couple of games. I don't want to start him. I don't want to play him. But when coaches are involved in picking out that talent, they feel a responsibility to make sure it works.
They're a little bit more invested, but I think they recognize traits that they want to produce,
for sure.
That they want to elevate, and there's certain.
Well,
things
that's on the front end, but then once they get them in house, they feel a more responsibility to prove, like, hey, I said he could do this, he could do that.
I think there's a lot of the improvement. There's also, I think they look at them as being a piece of that puzzle because they kind of have that vision of like, I need this guy to come fill this role to do this thing that is going to elevate that. So there's a lot of that, but there's also just the fact that coaches want players in certain positions in certain ways. They view it differently from a GM perspective too, and that's where as a GM you got to be smart because, again, on paper it might look like a really good financial contract, or it might look like a good deal on paper, but if that coach has again, we're going to look at Kwesi's first draft. He wanted value. We went and got two players that did not fit the mold. I mean, Booth and Scene from day one never caught on. They were outliers. It wasn't, it was just, they never fit. The coaches were never invested. It wasn't a coach's decision. But then you look at the following year and KOC absolutely wanted Addison because he's like, no, this guy is good. Like you cannot trade back. We got to get this guy. And you see the hole that he's filled. So I think it's a little bit of all of the above, but to your point, I think that's a lot. Again, if a coach goes and you're banging the table for this guy, you don't want to look like an idiot as he fails. So
right, I just think that I wouldn't, just to touch on Kwesi quick, I wouldn't pay Kwesi a whole bunch of money. I don't know why the contract negotiations are taking as long as they have. I'm guessing it's probably something to do with money. Kwesi saying, hey, we won all these games while I've been here. I deserve to be paid for that. And then the Vikings saying, how much of that is you compared to the coaches? And that's kind of the back and forth right now. So I'm not saying that you pay Kwesi a bunch of money, but at the same time, I do think that the way that you're trying to build your organization, that, hey, this is the Vikings. You want to come play here. We're collaborative. We work together. We treat our players well. We treat our employees well. If that's the culture that you're trying to build, Kwesi might be the perfect GM for that culture because we saw it with Spielman. We saw it with Zimmer. Like, it's difficult when you get to this level of anything where you're at the best of the best, the top of the top, where egos don't get involved. And when you have Kwesi and KOC working together, there's very little ego that seems to get in the way with the Vikings' decision-making process. And there's no guarantee that if you bring in another GM or, somebody who you think can kind of mentor KOC a little bit better, that the ego doesn't start to play a part. And we've seen, look at the Nuggets, the Denver Nuggets in basketball. Like, you want to tell me that ego can't tear apart an entire organization? Like, the GM and head coach not liking each other literally ruined the Denver Nuggets from like this going to the NBA Finals every single year mentality to now they're trying to rebuild their whole organization. What are we going to do at coach? What are we going to do? So, like,
culture isn't easy to fit. Culture isn't easy to build. Culture is, everything the Vikings have done is it's been pretty miraculous when you look at, the Players Association and the polls and everything like that. That's not easy.
Right.
You even look at other organizations that are successful. They don't have that type of, again, sometimes you got to disconnect. You look at the Patriots. It was a Patriots way. Bill Belichick was a special player, but you also had Tom Brady that kind of instilled some of that. But the second he left, they tried to bring in, Mayo, thinking that, hey, that's another Patriots guy. It didn't work.
No.
He was gone in 1 year. So it's like, just because we're upset at Kwesi for a couple drafts and different things, I can't say that he's been a failure. Not at all. I might even say he's been I think I used the analogy one time when you and I were talking. He's kind of been the Kirk Cousins of GMs. He's kind of filters in that, that top 10, maybe 15, does some really good things wrong, but there's some of those things that he doesn't, for the intangibles, for instance.
And you don't really know what those intangibles are exactly that he doesn't have or does have. It's like an unknown.
It's an unknown. You've just kind of, again, the way he's navigated free agency is probably the best that we've ever seen as Vikings fans in our entire lives.
Yeah.
But the way he's handled the draft, we've been pretty spoiled from a drafting perspective. Because Denny Green always drafted well, and that regime's drafted well, and we've,
Spielman drafted
outside
well.
of a few, late years, but he's always drafted really well. So we've always come out of the draft really well. So for us, it was weird to see Kyle Hamilton drop and us trade back and go, wait, no, we're not in. Like, that's like the Randy Moss situation. I think if we traded out of the Randy Moss, we had Chris Carter. We had a Hall of Fame wide receiver. We did not need Randy Moss. We had Jake Reed.
Yeah.
But there's that player, and we've seen that. Well, we saw Kyle Hamilton is that kind of player, and we shouldn't have drafted out, and we wouldn't be in this position. It'd be talking a whole different story.
Yeah, and Harrison Smith would probably be retired.
Potentially, or. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he retires. Maybe we're a better team, and maybe he sticks around. And him and Hamilton are the best safety duo that we've ever seen.
That's true. That's very possible. All right, I think that's where we're gonna end it. Anything else that you want to get in before we call it?
No, I think we pretty much covered. I'm looking at the clock. I think we probably went 2 or 3 times longer than we even anticipated we were gonna go.
Yep, I agree. Ooh,
mosquitoes over there, huh?
There's some like flying gnat or I don't know, but I think I got it. It's not on my hand though. That makes me nervous that it's like crawling on me or something. But
you're probably gonna die of AIDS later. So
yeah, well, it won't be because of the bug though. All right, that's all we got. Hold on, I should probably play our outro music, huh?
Yeah, I gotta play the outro. We're gonna go back to the basics here, back to the good old days when life was simpler.
Yeah. All right, here we go. There it is. All right, I'm Eric Strack, Minnesota sports fan, minnesotasportsfan.com. Brandon joined us again today for the first time in a while.
So much fun. I might even come back again.
Hopefully we'll have.
I'm not big on commitments, but it's throwing it out there.
Next time hopefully we can have Caleb on with us. It's been a long time since we've had all three of us.
Yeah, that's been a really long time. We're probably talking 2019 time frame in that aspect.
Yeah, I remember the one where we recorded at your house, and Lance was there too.
Yeah.
That was the one.
Right.
That was the one time I remember having Caleb on with all of us.
I'm in 2019 time frame because I was only there for less than a year, and then I moved over to my buddies for a little bit as I was making my move to Arizona.
Yep. So hopefully we can get Caleb on, but it was nice to have Brandon on with us again. I'm not sure. Tomorrow's Thursday, so we'll probably do. Caleb and I will get back on Friday, talk about the draft and recap the Wild, get ready for the Timberwolves, and other than that, go Vikings, go Wild, go Timberwolves. See you next time, fam.
Go Minnesota, go sports.
That's right, go sports.
At 3 o'clock, he locked the freeze box and turned on CL Smooth and Pete Rock and put it on repeat.